Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Rick and I'm here with my March reviews. So, a little behind on recording these. It's like April 20th as we sit right now, but I'm going to try to knock out some review videos today. This way when I drop videos, one day it's a review video, the other day of the week it's a pickup video. Plus, if you guys know, recently I've been doing about 2 live streams per week, 1 to 2 live streams a week. So as long as this stuff's going on with, me not necessarily being in work, my goal is to do at least a live stream a week. Keep in touch with you guys. It's pretty fun. I enjoy it. It goes in all sorts of directions. But I don't want to get too much into other stuff. I want to kind of dive right in. I got a stack of stuff to talk about in March. I will make one other note. If you do watch the review videos, April until question mark will be different. What I mean by that is this is everything I watched in March, excluding Star Wars movies. So I have about 23 movies to talk about in this video. However, for April, because I'm out of work and I've had a lot more time, I've been watching a lot more movies. So I'll be doing like a weekly April video, what I watched every week in April, because I'm watching almost, 2 movies a day on average. So that was the other thing I wanted to mention. Let's dive right in. The first thing I checked out in March was Batman Forever. If you guys remember in the February video, we watched Batman and Batman Returns. So we dove into Batman Forever. Now, the funny thing about this movie is I had only seen it one time before this rewatch. Didn't really remember a lot about it because I watched it when I was younger. Jim Carrey carries this movie in my opinion. He plays the Riddler and is the most entertaining part of the film, without a doubt. I'm not a fan of Val Kilmer as Batman in this movie. Thankfully, it only lasted for one film. Nicole Kidman's character in this movie is pretty annoying as well. I call her eye-rollingly annoying in my review that I wrote on Letterboxd. And Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face is decent in this movie, but not much more than that. Like I said, Jim Carrey really is the star of this film. He makes this movie, even watchable in my opinion. I did have a hard time getting through this. I found myself to be fighting sleep during it, and I watched it in the middle of the day. So it's not great. It's not on the same level as the first 2 movies. But I give it a 2.5 out of 5, pretty much solely for the fact that Jim Carrey as the Riddler is highly entertaining. The next thing that we watched, Bridget and I checked out The Hero, starring Sam Elliott. This was a movie I grabbed at a Goodwill a while back. Wanted to check it out. I've actually seen a trailer for it fairly recently, and that's what made us want to watch this. It's a very quiet, slow-paced movie, kind of like Sam Elliott himself. But it's pretty uneventful. The cast is really good. You have Sam Elliott, Nick Offerman, Kristen Ritter, Laura Prepon. But I don't really have much else to say. It's a decent story, but it's a movie, in my opinion, where you only have to watch it one time. It's not a rewatchable movie for me. This won't make the shelf. This will be getting sold. It actually, on the back, it says, "The hero is true cinematic zen." So it's a very, Sam Elliott plays a famous Western star, but he's known for, one role in particular. And he's getting an award for, his career, but everybody knows him from this one role. And, yeah. I'm not going to get into much more than that. It's watchable, but like I said, it's not an amazing movie. I wouldn't go out and pay full price for this. If you find it for a couple dollars out hunting, you want to grab it and check it out, I would say go for it. So I give it a 2.5 out of 5 as well. The next thing was actually a movie we saw in the movie theaters. Do you guys remember movie theaters? Anyway, the next thing we saw was The Invisible Man using Regal Unlimited. So I was looking forward to seeing the movie for a while. The trailers made it look really good. I was kind of excited about it. And Elizabeth Moss was the lead in the film, and she did a great job as the lead, as playing someone who's paranoid, somebody who's in an abusive relationship. And so she does a great job acting with nobody. And what I mean by that is obviously there's somebody there wearing a suit and everything that you can't see when they're making the film, but on screen when it's just her, she grabs your attention, she keeps your attention on the movie, and it's enjoyable. What do I have here? The movie spins the classic tale as Elizabeth Moss's character, Cecilia, has an abusive boyfriend that she wants to and needs to get away from. And you know, it's basically the story of him being rich and basically saying that she can come into this money if she doesn't have any issues or hallucinations. And meanwhile, there's something up with that. There's lots of great jump scares that are in the movie, but they're actually legit jump scares, unlike a lot of horror movies where they're not legit, they're just cheap jump scares. They do a great job of building up tension in the film. I enjoyed the film quite a bit. It's one of the better things that's come out in 2020. The part that bothered me, though, was how much of the movie was given away in trailers. Definitely a lot of the film was given away in trailers, and the trailer was everywhere. You saw the trailer before so many movies, especially if you go to the movies often. Invisible Man, I was seeing that trailer like once or twice a week in theaters when we were going to movie theaters. But I give it a 3.5 out of 5. Definitely a great movie. Well, a good movie. Not a great movie, but a good movie. Definitely entertaining. And yeah, the next thing we watched was Batman and Robin. Check this out with RJ. I have not seen this movie since it came out in theaters in 1997. And I know it gets ripped apart. A lot of people bash it, but what do I have here? So the movie's watchable. I'm not saying it's good. It's not a good movie, but it's watchable. It's so over the top ridiculous in parts that it makes you laugh. It's, you know, it's very cartoony in my opinion. The writing is pretty awful. I do have written down here. But it's a mindless comic book, and it's not something I need to revisit anytime soon. I give it a 1.5 out of 5. I actually like George Clooney as Batman better than Val Kilmer personally, but nowhere near Michael Keaton or Christian Bale. But yeah, it's watchable. Not great. Not horrid. 1.5 out of 5. Next thing we saw in the movie theaters, and that was Onward using Regal Unlimited. Bridget, RJ, and I went. Really enjoyed the movie. I thought the movie was fantastic. You know, a lot of people, for some reason, are giving it flack because of subject matter, but I thought the movie was very enjoyable. I thought they did a great job. The relationship between the two main characters, Ian and Barley, who were voiced by Tom Holland and Chris Pratt, was great. You could really tell, you know, it was a very personal story to the writers of the film and the director. Disney Pixar, once again, knocks it out of the park with an emotional yet funny, entertaining film. For me, if you ranked all the Pixar movies, which I've done on my letterbox, check out the list. I've seen all but 2. I haven't seen Cars 3 or Bug's Life. It ranks right in the middle of the Pixar movies for me. Not towards the bottom, not at the top, dead center for me. So the movie has a great message and story to it. You know, the writer wrote the movie as a tribute to his brother, which, watching the movie, makes a lot of sense. It is a very personal, anybody who's lost a parent, anybody who has an older sibling who acted like a parent or you're super close with, I think this movie will resonate a lot more with those people. Plus, it was a funny movie. It was an entertaining movie. There's a lot of like Dungeons and Dragons stuff that will appeal to some people and probably lose some other people. Plus, seeing it in the movies, you got to see a short of The Simpsons, which was pretty crazy to see a Disney animated movie, Pixar, with a Simpsons short before it. But it happened. It's the new age of Disney. I believe the short's available on Disney Plus's Facebook right now. It's about Maggie, and she goes to the park and has a little boyfriend, and it's cute. It's a good cartoon. It was entertaining. It didn't overstay its welcome. But I gave Onward a 4 out of 5. Fantastic movie. Really enjoyed it. The next thing I'm not really going to talk about because I'm going to refer you guys to another video I have, and that was The Grudge, The Untold Chapter. Like I said, I have a video. If you look in the description, I'll put it in the description box. Link to that video where I talk about The Grudge. Wasn't a great movie. I watched it. It was watchable. This was sent to me by Sony to check out and review for you guys. I give it a 1.5 out of 5. Like I said, not a fantastic movie, but I thought it was watchable at least. 1.5 out of 5. Check out the review. Link down below. The next thing was the next two movies are the last two movies I've seen in theaters since like the second week of March, so over a month without going to the movies. It's crazy. The first thing was Emma. My experience with the story of Emma is limited to the movie Clueless, so as I was watching the film, I found myself comparing two characters in Clueless, so I could, have an easier time following along, kind of figuring out where the story was going. Anna Taylor-Joy is the lead in the film. She's very good. She gives a great performance as Emma. My gripe with the movie is that it seemed to be pretty slow moving. The trailers for the movie made it look like it was going to be a lot funnier than it actually was too. A lot of the funniest parts of the film are in the trailer, which was kind of a bummer to me. I was hoping there would be a lot more humor put in there. So it had a runtime of over 2 hours, which isn't super long, but when it's a slow-paced movie, it was a stretch to get through in parts. Now, it's not my type of movie normally either. I'm not usually into like period pieces unless there's some kind of like twist to them, like Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies. The Favorite, where there's something kind of else going on. But, the trailer, like I said, took away a lot of the humor in the film for me because it was stuff you saw. But it was a good story. It was a well-acted film. I give it a 3 out of 5. Definitely worth watching at home. I don't know if I'd pay the $20 to rent it right now, but definitely worth checking out at some point, in my opinion. And then the next thing I saw was The Hunt. Like I said, we saw both of those with Regal Unlimited. So this movie was supposed to be released like back in, I want to say September, October of 2019. And then there was, I want to say a shooting, some kind of, sad event took place and they postponed the movie. There was a lot of flack. They postponed the film. Then in early February, it was quietly announced that it was being released in March. Was able to see it. Like I said, this is before everything got crazy, everything got shut down. I went in with an open mind with this movie. I was really excited about it. It was definitely a funny film in parts. It definitely was gory in parts. But it just didn't do anything for me. I know Bridget, my girlfriend, really enjoyed the film. The thing I will say about it and defend about it is that it's a very political film. However, I was worried it was going to lean one side way too heavy. But this movie goes after... This movie goes after both sides. So it was refreshing to see that. But it just... I don't know. It fell flat. The other issue with this movie is if you've seen the trailer, there's a big spoiler in the trailer that if you hadn't seen the trailer, the first 2/3 of the movie, there's a mystery that's revealed the last half an hour of the film, but it's given away in the trailer, which kind of really bummed me out because if the trailers didn't do that, maybe I would have enjoyed it a bit more. But because I was expecting something in the trailer, it kind of hurt the movie for me. But yeah, it goes after both sides, which, like I said, I enjoyed. It goes after the left and the right. In the current political climate, I was surprised it got released, but it did. It was watchable. What did I give it? 2.5 out of 5. Like I said, nothing great. The next thing was Screwballs on DVD. I do not have it because I sold it, which means it did not make my shelf. It's just, I was in the mood for an 80s teen sex comedy, something mindless. the artwork on it made it seem like it was this fantastic, like, 80s sex teen comedy, like right up there with Porky's. And the movie had a short runtime. I want to say it was like 80 minutes. And it was just corny and cheesy. It was what I wanted, but it was pretty bad. What do I have? So the movie's corny and cheesy through and through, from the character names to the names of the high school. Like, it is very over the top, stupid, corny. It's a high school sex comedy from 1983 that takes place in the late 60s. I said, based on everything going on right now, it was exactly what I needed. There's a scene that takes place in a bowling alley that had me laughing out loud because it was so ridiculous. Also, the end of the movie is incredibly predictable, but it had an 80-minute runtime. Like I said, needed something fun, mindless, something new to see. I gave it a 1.5 screwballs on DVD. Like I said, didn't make the shelf. And then the opposite end of the spectrum, I watched Snowpiercer, which I had never seen before. You want to talk about two ends of the spectrum, going from screwballs to Snowpiercer. So what really made me interested in checking this out is it was directed by Bong Joon-ho, director of Parasite, which won the Best Picture this year. And we were out to lunch with Bridget's cousin and her husband, and they were both talking about how much they enjoyed this film. I'm going to try to... Yeah, so they were both talking about how much they enjoyed this. It's been sitting on my shelf for a while, so we checked it out. And I enjoyed it a really good amount. I loved the second half of the film. The first half is a bit of a slow burn, but the second half is very interesting. Also, I was intrigued because there's a whole online thing about how this movie is like a sequel to Willy Wonka in a dark universe. I could be on board with some of the theory because after watching the movie, we watched the video that talks about it. But there's definitely like parts of that that are a real stretch for me. But Snowpiercer was definitely an interesting watch. Will make the shelf, 3.5 out of 5. And I need to find some more Bong Joon-ho to watch. I know there's Okja on Netflix, and I think there's a few others. So I definitely want to look into those. But Snowpiercer, definitely a good flick. And then the next thing we watched was Despicable Me 3. So I had never seen this. I'd seen the first two. I'd seen Minions. I've seen the first movie so much because when RJ was a youngster, that was his go-to watch because he loved the Minions. So I can like quote that movie without looking at the screen, just like verbatim, like Ferris Bueller I can do that with. But Despicable Me, I can sit there and quote it. And this movie just fell through the cracks for me. Never saw it. And recently, I think it was when we saw Onward, there was a trailer for Minions 2, and I was like, man, I never saw Despicable Me 3. I should check that out. So we watched it, and the first thing I said to myself while watching this movie was, I can't imagine what the budget was for the music in the film. There's so much, like, there's a Michael Jackson song. There's just so much like music, Dire Straits. I think the musical budget for this film had to be astronomical. What do I have here? I enjoyed the film for the most part. Trey Parker was great as the villain in the film. My issue with this movie is the whole Gru and his brother Drew thing. Seemed very out of left field, out of nowhere. But you know, it's a kid's movie. But I'm definitely more excited to see Minions 2 after watching this. I actually, really enjoyed this one. I think I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. Yeah, 3.5 out of 5. So Despicable Me 3, a fun watch, a good watch. Recommend it. The next thing was a first-time watch for all three of us, and that is Summer Rental, starring John Candy, from 1985. 80s comedy. Rated PG. Obviously, PG back in the 80s is different than PG now. So there's a little raunch to it. It could easily be a PG-13 movie nowadays. But it features Joey Lawrence as one of his young children, like super young. And it's just a fun movie. It's about a guy who's overworked. He's an air traffic controller. He's starting to, not do well at his job. So he rents this place. They show up at this awesome house. It's amazing. Like, it's a gigantic house. They have a great beach right by them. And then they find out they're in the wrong house and they go to this other house and it's a dive. Like, they're right on the path where everybody walks through their yard. The house is like falling apart. 80s comedy ensues. Now, I enjoyed this a lot. I give it a 3.5 out of 5. However, if I had to choose between this and The Great Outdoors, I personally would choose The Great Outdoors, but this was still a fun watch. Still going to make the shelf. I can see myself checking this out again. I enjoyed it. Summer Rental starring John Candy. Take a drink. The next thing we watched was Charlie's Angels on DVD from the library. It's actually still over there because the library is still closed, but I don't have it to hold up and show you guys. So we went into this movie with zero expectations. RJ even sat and watched it with us. I had no expectations at all. I was expecting Hot Trash of the Month. It's not Hot Trash of the Month. Definitely not even the worst, like, one or two. It was bad. It wasn't good, but it wasn't horrible. The movie was pretty watchable and actually entertaining for the most part. I have a lot of issues with it. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying go buy it, go rent it. It felt weird that Kristen Stewart was the comic relief in the film. When I think Kristen Stewart, I don't think funny. I think awkward. But yeah, I laughed at parts she had. I also rolled my eyes at lines that she had. The action and the writing was a bit sloppy. The directing was also a bit sloppy. Elizabeth Banks got a lot of flack after this film because of stuff she said. She came off very like, oh, don't support this movie because it's women and directed by women, written by women. It just felt like an unnecessary movie. Why reboot the Charlie's Angels franchise? It just felt unnecessary. Like, if you're going to do a movie about like women empowerment, spy, do like an original idea. Don't use Charlie's Angels as a way to get your movie seen. And there's a rumor that she's making a movie called The Invisible Woman after the success of The Invisible Man. I hope that's not true. Just come up with an original idea, Elizabeth Banks. Like, we don't want to see retreads, especially from you. You're not a good enough writer, director to keep retreading mediocre stuff. So I give it a 2 out of 5. Not great, not awful. Next thing, speaking of great, That Thing You Do. It had been a long time since I've revisited this. Bridget and I popped it in, and man, oh man, how fantastic is this movie. Probably one of my top 5 favorite Tom Hanks movies, up there with Catch Me If You Can, Forrest Gump, Big. This movie is fantastic. The music in this movie is so good. The performances, the band, the chemistry. This movie is great. Steve Zahn in this film really steals it for me. He is hilarious in the movie. And it's just a consistent film. It's entertaining throughout. It's just well done. I give it a 4.5 out of 5. Tom Hanks, I believe this is his directorial debut. Yep, first time he wrote and directed a film, and man oh man, did he do a great job. Check this out if you haven't seen it, please. Fantastic, 4.5 out of 5. That Thing You Do. The next thing we watched was on Amazon Prime, and it was The Peanut Butter Solution, a movie Bridget always talks about that I've never heard of, not familiar with at all. The movie is incredibly weird and outrageous at times, but also watchable. It was a Canadian production, and it tells the story of a boy who wakes up one morning to realize he's lost all his hair. And he starts having visions and like dreams, nightmares about how to grow his hair back. And he basically makes a solution with peanut butter in it. He doesn't listen to the rules and puts extra peanut butter in it. And basically his hair starts growing constantly. And the story gets weirder from there. I'm not even going to get into where it goes from there. But the thing that I kept noticing and calling out during the movie is how ridiculous the adults are in this film. There's very little concern. Like, this kid wakes up with, or goes to bed with no hair and wakes up with a full head of hair. And 5 minutes later, after eating a meal, his hair's even longer. And his dad's like, oh yeah, it's growing back. Great. It's like, no, what? And then the kids go missing and the parents don't seem like freaked out about it. The movie is weird. But like I said, it's watchable. What do I have? I cannot see what's going on. It was a pretty fun movie, especially for a bizarre 80s kids film from Canada. I give it 2.5 out of 5. It was a fun watch. Nothing amazing, but definitely entertaining and ridiculous. Speaking of entertaining, the next thing we watched was on Hulu, and it is Big Time Adolescence, starring Pete Davidson. I had seen a trailer for this. It looked really good. It was a pleasant surprise. Bridget and I had watched the Pete Davidson stand-up probably a couple days before watching this, and it was brutal. I'm a huge stand-up fan, and I can usually watch a stand-up special from almost anybody. This Pete Davidson special, and I'm a fan of him on SNL, was just hard to sit through. It was unfunny. Just felt really sloppy and thrown together. But Pete Davidson was a lot of fun in this film. He was really good in the movie. It's basically about a young kid named Mo who hangs out with his sister's boyfriend in the beginning, Zeke, played by Pete Davidson. They break up at the beginning of the movie, but Mo still hangs out with Zeke as he gets older. Has him drink when he's still in high school. He's using drugs. He's encouraging hooking up with girls. But it's almost like he plays the older brother to this kid, and their relationship is really interesting. It's a heartwarming film. It's hilarious. It's heartbreaking all at the same time. Big Time Adolescence on Hulu. Check it out sometime if you guys, if it seems like something you'd be interested in. I give it a 3.5 out of 5. Really enjoyed it. The next thing is another flick I'm not going to go into detail about because there's a video all about it. I'll put a link down below. And that is Come to Daddy, which was sent to me by Lionsgate. Give it a 3 out of 5. Definitely, if you're into gory, weird horror thrillers, I recommend checking this one out. Like I said, video and the link down below if you guys haven't checked it out, where I talk about this by its own. So, Come to Daddy, 3 out of 5. The next thing was a movie I got from Pam's a while ago. Second Act, starring Jennifer Lopez. Just wanted something light and airy to watch. And, we're just in certain moods, especially with what's going on now, where sometimes you just need something mindless, something to unplug your brain and just watch. And we dove into this. Now, I'll start off by saying, not a big fan of Jennifer Lopez. She's never really blown me away in a film. Not a fan of her music. She doesn't really do much for me. Leah Remini's in this movie, plays Jennifer Lopez's best friend. She was actually pretty funny in the movie. And then her son in the film steals scenes early on in the movie. And then he kind of just disappears in the film. Which was a bummer because every time he was in a scene early on, it was laugh out loud funny for me. Now, this isn't an amazing movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a watchable film, fairly enjoyable. There's a twist in the film that had me oh, sure, that's happening. But if you're a fan of chick flicks, like comedies, I recommend checking it out. I give it a 3 out of 5. However, don't think it's very rewatchable. Won't be making the shelf, so this will be getting sold. And the next thing, my surprise of the month, I did not forget. Although that will change in April. We'll talk about that in the April review video, the first one. The surprise of the month is The Predator. So I did a vote on Instagram which movie to watch between some guy flicks, if you will. And this was what was picked out. And man, oh man, what a pleasant surprise. Now this movie gets hate, it gets love. I listened to a podcast. One of the guys had it in his top 10 of the year. I've listened to podcasts where people have said it's the worst thing. I've watched reviews where people said it's horrible. I had people saying, sorry, you have to sit through that. I thought this movie was a blast. I thought the action was fun. I thought the humor in the movie was a real standout, which is probably why I enjoyed it so much. The group of misfit soldiers and the humor between them. Keegan-Michael Key is hilarious in the movie. I've actually since, I believe it's been in a video. You guys might not have seen it. Spoiler alert, I'm selling this because I upgraded to the 4K. I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was violent, funny, and just a fun watch. I'd give it a 3.5 out of 5. I really enjoyed this. Like I said, upgraded to 4K, so this is being sold with that cool slip. It's like matte over here and then glossy there, but a fun watch for sure. And then the next thing I watched, which was my hot trash of the month, Black Christmas from 2019. I got a code from my buddy Tim. Tim hooked me up. And went in the movie with an open mind. I actually was looking forward to seeing it. Tried to disregard all the trash talk I heard about the film. And the movie starts out with a decent scene. There's something that happens though, and there's no blood at all. And I'm like, that's totally unplausible, not realistic. So it took me out of the movie a bit. There was a PG-13 rating. And then the movie forces a feminine agenda and does it in such a heavy-handed way that it's insulting to viewers. If you want to see a horror film of recent with a good female empowerment story, check out The Invisible Man. I talked about it earlier in this video. But if you want to watch a heavy-handed, make you feel like garbage if you're a man film, this is it. And not only that, the female characters aren't very likable in my opinion, which makes it even harder to sit through. They try to hold your hand throughout the movie. They try to basically, you know, baby feed stuff to you. They recap stuff that's happened that you've watched. The movie was awful. I give it a 1 out of 5. I do not recommend it. I wouldn't even support the film based on what they try to do in it. And yeah, hot trash of the month, Black Christmas from 2019. The last 3 movies we watched were the Rush Hour trilogy. We checked these out with RJ. It had been a long time since I've seen them. There's like a J card, so I'm trying to... So I'm basically going to give my quick thoughts on the trilogy. I ranked them 1, 2, 3 in order, personally. 1 and 2 are very equal movies in my opinion, and then there's a big drop off to the third film. The humor holds up in the first movie, for sure. I remember quoting along with it, even though I hadn't seen it in so long. The action's great, and the chemistry between Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker is awesome. Rush Hour 2, you know, I think the humor holds up in the first one a little bit more than the second one. I felt like the second one was basically more like tied into what was going on at that time, where I think the first one had basically humor that aged better, I guess I want to say. The action was ramped up in the second film though. Definitely enjoyed the action more. But the chemistry between the two is what makes these movies watchable. Then the third one happens and there's a drop off in comedy. There's a drop off in action. The third one is just not as good, not close to as good as the first two. There's unrealistic action. I don't know what my phone just said. Unrealistic action, just a disappointing end of the franchise. I gave the first 2 movies a 3.5 and the last movie a 2. The Rush Hour trilogy, definitely check out the first 2. The third one, eh. And that's it, guys. That is March reviews, all finished. Thank you for watching. Check out the description box down below where you can find links to my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, eBay, Letterboxd, where I rate and review all the movies I watch, Amazon wishlist, email address, all that can be found down below. Probably some other links that I don't even remember. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you guys enjoyed. Leave comments. I will try to respond back to as many as I can. And that's it, guys. So as always, until next time, who's down to movie?